Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you today. Welcome to Cars and Coffee with Kenny Brown. I am Cari, Kenny's partner and wife and business partner, and this is Brad Grissom.
Everybody knows Brad.
Yep. Brad is does a lot of stuff for us on the marketing side. So we're welcome today. We have a really good show. We are going to be talking about this wheel that we showed you last week and the story behind that. And then we're also have a special guest today, Doug Kielian, who's going to be talking about the short wheelbase Thunderbird that him and Kenny built together. So it should be an exciting show. And then, as always, we will be opening for questions at the end. So if you have any questions for Doug or for us, please feel free to listen. Right now, what are we going to do, Brad?
Well, the first thing, what's in Kenny's toolbox? So I found something cool. I've never actually seen one of these before. In fact, I thought it was something to turn on your water, but apparently what this is a spanner wrench. And so it says right here, no one can see this. There's some little writing right here, but it says that this is a spanner wrench. So this would be used to adjust the coil on the shock. Basically, it's got a little thing here that kind of clips into the shock seat, I guess, itself. And then I'm not sure what this square hole is for. I have no idea. So that must be some type of an older shock or something like that. But this is something that I've never seen before. I'm sure that most of you have probably never seen this before. So this is pretty cool.
How many of you have seen that before? Why don't you, if you've seen it before, just a comment. So It looks like Brian West. Hello, Brian, and Joe Johnson. And we see that you're here. Welcome to the show. Let's see who else is here. Let us see where you're from. Okay, and then last week we promised you, we gave you a little sneak peek at what was behind us and the story behind that. That's a Kenny Brown story. Do you want to bring out the wheel, or do you want to talk about it?
Well, so that's an ROH wheel, and Kenny used ROH wheels back in the day in the early 1990s when he was building his Outlaw Mustang. And so that was kind of his go-to wheel choice. Of course, at that time, there weren't a lot of wheels to choose from, but it was a lightweight, really nice wheel. So I'll let Cari tell you the story of the wheel itself, and I'll kind of turn it around so you can see the damage that was done.
Yeah. So anyway, Kenny built a lot of Outlaws for the Fox body Mustangs, and that was kind of his premier top-of-the-line car. You want to bring it in a little bit?
Yeah.
And so anyway, this is the wheel.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Can you believe that? Look at that. And it's all scuffed on the front. So the story behind this is the Outlaw was going to be the cover of Motor Trend magazine. And so Kenny drove up to Detroit with the car, and he just happened to stop by Car and Driver magazine. And one of the editors from Car and Driver decided to take it for a spin. Kenny was in the car, and the gentleman was a little too aggressive going onto an entrance ramp on to one of the freeways in Detroit. And what happened is they went, do you remember the story? Anyway, so he went on the entrance ramp too far. He made major issues in adjusting to get on it. The car flipped over on its head, and it skid for over 100 yards on that top. What saved their lives was Kenny had a really good street cage built into there. Kenny was actually holding on to the street cage, and his ring was between the street cage and the roof that had collapsed down. And his ring actually saved his hand from collapsing underneath there. So it was his Mustang ring. I don't know if any of you ever saw that. It was a gold ring with a Mustang on it. He wore it all the time. But anyway, it was just really dramatic. So Car and Driver or Motor Trend did not get their car that day. Kenny was a little upset because that was pretty major damage. It more or less totaled the car. The good news is because Kenny had so much chassis support in the car, the engine was perfectly fine. He had his strut tower brace, lower chassis brace, and obviously subframe connectors on there, along with the street cage. So the good news is neither one of them were damaged or were hurt. The car was totaled, but we were able to save a lot of the parts. What happened then is we called one of our customers that had another Outlaw. by the name of Howard Harris, and he let us use his car, and we put that in Motor Trend and made the cover of Motor Trend a few weeks late. So anyway, that's the story behind it, but that wheel was pretty damaged.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there was not a straight body panel left on the car, but I think the wing might have been salvageable. It had a really cool special wing that Ken used that he has on, for any of you that have seen Old Blue, that was a special wing that he made or had made for those cars at one time. So,
and the other note is that I think we were going to have the magazine article here, and I searched and searched in our archives, and I could not find it. So I think it was in 92. If anybody wants to look up Motor Trend 1992 and the Kenny Brown Outlaw XS. So kind of look for that, and I'll try to find it and bring it next week.
Yeah, I think they pitted that car against Shelby American Auto Club specialty car at the time as well. So that is an interesting interview because there's some really great quotes from the editor that got a considerable amount of hate mail coming inbound to Motor Trend magazine for, I don't know, weeks probably.
Here's an answer to the little part. What did you call it?
Spanner
wrench.
Yeah.
The square hole is probably for a wrench drive. Good point. Good point.
Oh yeah, so you can adjust the cars while the coal is loaded. So that's probably to put your ratchet in, so it's much easier to turn the seat, I guess, on the spring itself. So yeah, that's good. Whoever said that, you're pretty much on top of it right now.
Yeah, right now we're not seeing the name for some reason. It says Facebook user, and that reminds me, if you want to us to see your name at the very top where you're on Facebook or YouTube, there should be a note if you want to join. If you want to join so we can see your name, that you need to click a couple authorizations. There's another one, John Winkler.
Fred Fancher is the one who he's the one who came up first with the question, with the answer to the question. And then we had a Facebook user. They're probably watching on the Speed Therapy Society page, and that's why we can't see their name. He says that is a ratchet head provision on the tab of the spanner wrench, makes it easier to turn on a loaded coilover. So yeah, good answer from two people there.
Yeah, and then we also have John Winker. Hello, John. Good to see you from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Fred, good to see you there. Rory from Maple Ridge, BC. Brian West. Yeah, we have. Oh, he has another answer too.
Maybe 1/2-inch square drive.
Yep. So anyway, Bill Wellman, Bob Jones. Hi, good to see you. It's Kelsey. Oh,
okay.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So the other one, the Facebook user that gave us the answer was Bob Jones. He's actually one of the Speed Therapy Academy alumni. Good answer, Bob.
Hi, Kelsey. It's always good to see you.
Kelsey is actually Brad's daughter. And so he's in Indy with me still, and he is going to go see her today.
Yeah, I'm going to come visit you today, Kelsey. I guess you don't know that, but now you do.
So one more comment. It is a race weekend here, Indianapolis 500. How many are watching that on Sunday? Oh, no. It's qualifying.
It's
all day.
Yeah. So so they start qualifying today. They moved qualifying up because it's supposed to rain this afternoon. So they're going to try to get as much in as they can. They've changed the format for the Indy 500. They used to have all of this. You do qualifying one day, and then they have qualifying another day, and then they do bump day, and it's just was crazy. So they've made it a little bit more reasonable for everybody now.
So what we're going to do now is we are probably going to move into our main subject, which is Kenny's short wheelbase Thunderbird. And Brad, you want to play a little bit?
Yeah, so we've got a video. Kenny, in a previous episode of Cars and Coffee, talked a little bit about the short wheelbase T-Bird. So we're going to go ahead and share that video now. It's about 6 minutes long. And then we will introduce Mr. Doug Kielian, who's going to talk a little bit about the short wheelbase T-Bird and some history with Kenny from the early days in Omaha as well. So wish us luck here. I'm going to add this to the stream.
Okay, short wheelbase T-Bird. We did, this is kind of like a project. It started, I was like real friendly with the guys in the, I guess we call it the Fox-based group at Ford in the X Garage. That's where they do all the pre-production modifications and stuff. And Art, is it Art? no, I can't remember his name. Anyway, they also did, in their group was Mustang, T-Birds, and Mark 7. So they were like way ahead of their time. They actually put an entire chassis together. Instead of welding, it was bonded. But it was like too far ahead, and the management at Ford just couldn't get their head around that one. Now it's like commonplace. But they put together a short wheelbase T-Bird just to play with, and it was pretty cool. And it actually got frowned upon by upper management, and so I kind of carried the torch from there, and we built a number of short wheelbase T-Birds, and this is one of them. This is actually a short wheelbase Super Coupe that turned into a track car. The story is with this car, I was up in Detroit on a weekend, and I met Jim Kennedy. Jim Kennedy was the manager in charge of the whole X Garage Fox group. And I brought this short wheelbase T-Bird up for him because it was going to be, I think this is Car and Driver. It was going to be in Car and Driver like the following week. So we jumped in this and met him at like a restaurant, and we drove to the proving grounds. And as we were driving into the proving grounds, Neil Ressler, who was one of the, way up guys at Ford, like way up, was driving out, and he rolled his window down, and he looked at the car front and back, looked right to Jim Kennedy and said, "I don't want to know about it," and drove away. So that was like plausible deniability, but it was a pretty cool car. And we did quite a few of them. And we also did some Supercharged Thunderbirds. I'm pushing buttons here, in case you're wondering. This is the article that was in Car and Driver. And this is just the first page of it, or it was the second page, and they were incredibly complimentary. Something strange that happened is they were doing like a high-speed test, because Car and Driver used the Chrysler Proving Grounds. It's like in Chelsea, Michigan. The thing blew a head gasket. I called up the guys in the Fox group, the T-Bird group, and I said, "Hey, this thing just blew a head gasket." They go, "Oh yeah, we know," and so they hustled up, and I got a set of brand new prototype parts, head gasket, head bolts. We rebuilt the car overnight at a friend's of mine's house. We got it back to Car and Driver the next day, ran like a champ. So that's just one of these, when you go to a magazine, you have to be prepared for anything. And then this is, we did a number of these Supercharged T-Birds, which are pretty cool. That's another magazine. This is, what magazine is this? It's probably Steve Turner, so it's got to be one of the Mustang books. What we had to do, because nobody had a supercharger kit for the T-Birds, we actually had to do our own. We got the superchargers from Vortec, and then we built our own bracketry, our own plumbing, and made a kit that fit in the T-Bird. And we did, I don't know, in the number of into the 20s, something like that. And they were just really cool cars. We did the same thing with the Marauders. We built our own kit for the Marauders based off of, we got the Vortec head and then made all the bracketry and everything, did it ourselves. So those, the T-Birds were, we did quite a few of those. It was really cool. The short wheelbase were amazing. And then the Supercharged Birds were even better. And that was supercharged. Well, the Super Coupes had a Supercharged V6. We did the Supercharged V8. This is, it's kind of a fuzzy picture, so you can tell how long ago it was. But that's me. That's Paul, my late son, and that's Doug Kielian. And we started the first short wheelbase with a body shop that was near us in Omaha, and they were Omaha at the time. And they said they were going to do it, but they kind of got, I don't know, they kind of went soft. And I got a hold of Doug, who has a body shop down in Lincoln, Nebraska. And gosh, remember the name of his shop, Cari? Is it Car something?
Sure, it's Autocraft, and it's more than a body shop. He does a lot of restorations and really, really quality work on his vehicles. Does a lot of really one-off vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, he is super talented. It's just like, you can't tell from that, but he used to be a model. And he looks like it too. But anyway, I mean, he's just super talented, really smart guy, figures things out. This is the Super Coupe, and I mean, it's like we took, I think, 8 inches out behind the door, and it just so much changed dynamics of the car. I mean, it felt lighter, quicker, more nimble. I mean, it was an absolute ball to drive. Now this is showing how we actually took it out. Something else on the short wheelbase is like when we shortened it up, we actually improved the overall handling because God's name, one of the engineers at Ford that was in charge of all like the Trans Am cars and road race cars. God, I can't remember his name either. Anyway, he was telling me that with the long wheelbase on a race car, they had a real problem with the rear moment of inertia. Keeping the back of the car together, and by shortening it up, that kind of takes that problem and makes it go away. But this is, so you can see the cut, one out and one in, how it slides together. And there's another one getting slid together. This was, I just think this was so cool, and the cars were amazing.
This is obviously a blast from the past, and it was fun watching Kenny talk about that. So, Brad, why don't you introduce Mr. Killian?
Okay, so we're going to bring Doug Kielian on, and Doug is an incredibly talented person. He's a true craftsman. He's a true innovator. The things he did with the short wheelbase T-Bird with Kenny were nothing short of phenomenal. He played an instrumental role in all of that. He really was the man behind the scenes. And so we're going to bring Doug on. Let's go ahead. Doug, are you ready? Let's get him on here.
There we go, Doug.
Okay, there you are. Doug Kielian, the famous Doug Kielian.
Yeah,
so
right.
Doug, you've known Kenny for years. You met him well before I did. Why don't you give us a little background on yourself, and let's talk also following that, how you met Kenny for the very first time, and then let's move on with the story from there, because you have a great story to tell.
Yeah, it can get pretty lengthy, but I'll try to sum it up real quick. Basically, kind of growing up in Colorado, being a Mustang kid. Dragging home old Mustangs when we were kids and fixing them up, and then eventually getting into the Fox body Mustangs. In '86, I bought a new one, and then later on in '89, I bought an '89 GT off the showroom floor. Had to move from Colorado to Nebraska, and in the transition of moving here, I read the Omaha World Herald one time, and I seen an article with this Mustang race car right there in the center of the page, and it just struck me. And this was up in Omaha, and I didn't even know that. I had a brother in Lincoln. That's why I was interested in coming to Lincoln for a little bit. But I went up to Omaha because of this article, Project Industries, race car Mustang. So I found the place, walked in, and met Ken and Cari. I think I probably stopped in. It might have been on a Saturday or something, but visited a little bit. But I was just there to kind of look around to see what this Mustang race stuff was all about. And then I also met Paul there that day as well. So I didn't spend a lot of time there. Just I was really in awe and kind of starstruck by the place and the shop that they had there, because I was into these cars at this point in time. And so I came back to my shop in Lincoln, about 45 miles away, and I had a fair amount of spare time on my hands, since I didn't know a lot of people in Lincoln. And I had my '89 Fox body Mustang, and I decided to change the profile on it and the look of it. I wanted a Pantera at some point in time. So anyway, long story short, I chopped the top on it, modified the quarter panels and fenders and such. And then it wasn't quite done yet, but I drove it to Colorado to show some of my friends there at a big Mustang show. And then there was a Mustang show in Omaha on Sunday. So I decided to just hammer down and leave Colorado and drive all night long back to Lincoln, spend a few hours in bed, and then get up early in the morning and go to this Mustang show in Omaha. When I got there, I didn't have the $15 or so to put it in the show, so I parked over at Kmart parking lot where they told me, and soon enough, some guy came over and asked if that was my car over there. I said, yeah. He said, get it over here and put it in the show. And he said, I'll take care of the entry or whatever. So they had me bring it in, and I parked. They had me park right next to Kenny Brown's race car, the 5.0 race car there at the time. And so then I went over and met with Paul and talked with him a little bit. Paul called his dad, Ken, and within a few minutes, Ken arrived at the show and basically walked circles around my chopped Fox body Mustang, which you see back here in the picture here. And so he was intrigued by the body modifications on that, so started asking me questions if I do that kind of work and such. And we talked a little bit, and then he said he had a special project that he was working with and needed somebody maybe of my talents, I guess, to stop in and take a look. So the next day, Monday, I came up and met with Ken, and we looked at some of the blueprints and media stuff that he had. And Ford had built their one prototype to do some testing with and such, but it was kind of weird looking. But they hung their hat on a lot of the technology on that car, possibly being the next generation Mustang platform. And I think that's what the original intent of shortening the car was with Ford is to possibly look at doing the next Mustang platform. But that was just a design exercise, and that was a test mule project. So Ken was involved with those guys at Ford, and I thought that was fascinating. And here I am as a young 27-year-old car enthusiast and somewhat, I'm a body man. I collision repair and restoration work. So this was quite a exciting time for me to, wow. I mean, I'm stepping right into something that's major league and such. So, but Ken and I went in the shop and looked at a couple of body and whites he had there, and we went and looked at another car at another body shop that was trying to do something that to me looked like a failure. Didn't quite understand the geometry of the car that they were trying to shorten. So I went back to the shop and I studied the profile of the Thunderbird, the MN12 car, and asked Ken for a tape measure and a magic marker, and he found those. And I just spent about 20 minutes with the car envisioning cutting it in half and then bringing it together, shortening it. And the quarter windows on the car, quite obviously to redesign a quarter window would be multiple thousands and thousands of dollars and such. So I decided that quarter window has to stay. We just have to find a way to shorten that C-pillar. So I measured on horizontals and dots and ran ink lines on there, just envisioning this in my mind, in my shop as I would have to do it. Then I went and got Ken and said, well, here's what I think I can do. I can shorten this car. I can't shorten it the 13 inches that Ford did, but I think I can shorten it 8 inches. And at that point in time, Ken really got kind of excited. And we talked a little more, and then the next day, the car was, Paul bring the car down to me on a trailer, and I got a few pictures here that I'll try to just flash up. Here's the first body in white that was brought down, and that's it before being cut. It was just this was a complete running driving car. It was a test mule, and then it was stripped apart and then donated to the process. And here it is getting cut. There it is, cut in half. And I had to build a special jig to build the cars on. But this is the first one, and it was kind of a prototype. But anyway, within about 10 days or 2 weeks, that's pretty much what I had. I just spray painted the quarter panel and blacked out the windows and looked like a driving car. So then Ken wanted it red, so painted it red. And within couple of weeks. Here it was back at Kenny's shop, Project Industries, sitting in the back of the shop with some pretty cool wheels on it. But there you can see how short it is. It's 8 inches shorter, but it still looks natural. The C pillar is proportionative to the front A pillar. And then, of course, later on, this is that silver car that was shown in the magazine, the car that went to Pennsylvania. And it was just some of the lines on there. So anyway, that's how Ken and I kind of got going on it. And we built the one car. Like I said, the first time I showed Ken pictures of it finished, or not finished, but in yellow paint there, was down at Heartland Park, Topeka, where they were doing a Shelby event, open track race event. And yeah, I'd never been in a race car before. And Ken said, hop in, we'll go for a couple hot laps around Heartland Park, Topeka. And, boy, howdy, I was awakened to some real live race car action by the seat of my pants, basically. And I was holding on for dear life, because it was quite a thrill ride to ride around the track with Ken. It was absolutely, especially for the first time ever being on a track or in a real race car. That was an eye-opening experience. I don't want to say I was hooked, but I was, being a body and paint guy, I was definitely, there behind the scenes for lots of different things. Ken and I later on then started doing a lot of the Outlaw XS Mustangs and all the other modifications for a lot of his customers and such. And here actually is a picture of that Outlaw XS car after we got done widening the fenders and the quarters a little bit, adding that wing. Later on, we did a hood for this car. It was in the paint booth at the time. In the background, you can see my chopped Mustang right here. It's black at that time. So that's that car. And I happened to have or found some pictures of what Cari was talking about earlier about what the magazine editor did to the car. And that's it right there. This is after it was brought back to Ken's shop and basically parted out. And of course, they totaled the car pretty hard. But so anyway, that's just to give some of the viewers a little bit of a visual on that. It was a absolutely gorgeous rocket ship of a car, and see that happen to it. But like I said, Ken and the car driver for Road and Track, I don't know, they survived. They did write an article about it, basically about the survivability of rolling and sliding a car with the roll cage in there and all the other chassis stiffening stuff. So that's all. Yeah, that was all documented. So, but
I just think that's amazing that how it skidded on the roof for about 100 yards, and his hand was in between the roll cage and the hood of the roof of the car, and his ring saved his hands. I mean, it was just he had to pull his hand out, and the ring stayed in there. So he eventually got the ring back, but he couldn't even get the ring out. So it's.
I remember him. Yeah, I remember him after that talking about that and such. And
yeah, it was quite a thrill ride that he really didn't want to have. So
yeah.
So he was pretty angry at the time, because he's telling me like, okay, well he entered the corner too fast and blah blah blah. He's telling me all this technical stuff, what the driver did wrong. So typical. Yeah,
I guess it was going on to or coming off of a clover leaf around a interstate system there.
Yeah, and he was trying to show off to Ken, and he really didn't accomplish.
Didn't work out. No. But it is part of history now, so it's at least we got some good pictures of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that you still have that photo, because that was a really cool car.
Why don't you show the totaled car again, because I thought that was pretty interesting. Hold that up really close.
Oh, you want to hold that up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oops, yeah. Let me get you on a full screen here so we can see it. There we go.
Yeah, I remember that day going up there and seeing the car and taking a few pictures. Back then we didn't have cell phones. It was just a 35 millimeter, a regular camera, and you had to pay for the film. So we didn't take 35 pictures in one setting. We took 3. But at that point in time, I really wish I would have said to Ken, I said, hey, let's grab that car and save it, put it somewhere. But anyway, there's the Outlaw XS decal on the back. So, but I don't know what ever happened to it from there, but it probably got more parted out and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, it wasn't a.
not all of them survive, you know.
Nope.
Yeah. So Doug, tell us. I know you've got some cool stories that we would like to hear about you and Ken, but tell us, you know, how Ken, you know, inspired you. How did Ken impact your career as you moved forward?
Well, very heavily, because here I just moved from Colorado. You know, I'm a body collision repair guy working in a Cadillac dealership, Ford dealership. And you know, early on out of high school, I started my first shop doing restoration on Mustangs and Hemi Challengers, 442 Oldsmobiles. I mean, we weren't restoring, we were just fixing them up and painting them. So there's no doubt that I had a pretty good career going in auto body work and such, and pretty passionate about my work. Been doing it since I was 12 years old and such. But you know, you always look for your big break. You know, so when I met Ken, that was somebody that looked at my work and not just looked at it as, oh wow, that's nice, that's neat, that's really good, or this and that, you know, good job or whatever. He actually said, hey, I need you. I've got something that I think you can help us out with. And so that was more than just a compliment and oh wow, I pleased one person on my car that I did or something. Now this was a continuing thing that, so early on in my business in Lincoln, Nebraska here, Ken was a big influence and all the Outlaw XS cars that would come down. I mean, it'd be one after another for sometimes there. And, you know, quite obviously I had some of my own work going on as well, but between Ken bringing stuff down and another guy up there a little bit later on, Jack Beck in Omaha, it opened up a lot of doors for me. It got me a lot of recognition. The short wheelbase T-Bird, getting and having that come out in the magazines with you know, all of Ken's upgrades and things like that on there, and his contacts with people. You know, I would go to the SEMA show, I'd go to this event or that event, and you know, I'm a nobody, I'm a no name recognized person, and casual conversations start mentioning the short wheelbase T-Bird, Kenny Brown and such, and all of a sudden, wow, you know, doors opened for me, and I was able to you know, make my way a little bit further with my own work and such as well. So yeah, Ken was a big influence, a great motivator. I mean, he was a very excitable guy when he had something going in the right direction and such. And then quite obviously his son Paul was, of course, obviously influenced by his dad to get into motorsports and racing, and the passion and the work level and the intensity that Paul had. Here's one of Paul's race cars right here. That so not only were we doing stuff for Ken, we were doing all the entry level body paint work for his son Paul Brown, all the way up to his successful career in the World Challenge. So it early on, it opened up a lot of doors, and I hung my hat on that, and just being the body and paint guy behind the scenes for many different projects. So very thankful that I happened to go up to Omaha that day or read the paper and seen that article and went up there. You know, if I wouldn't have done that, chances are we would have met through some avenues and stuff. But that day and that day at the car show with Ken seeing my chopped Mustang and having the belief and the confidence in me, and me having the passion to push and follow through, I guess. Yeah, very good connections.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a pinnacle point in your life and in your career too, that first chance meeting that you had with Kenny.
Well, it's funny because in the video there that Ken had, he mentioned, oh, and Doug was a model as well. Well, okay, so yeah, that's true. When I was in Denver, I got involved with a little bit of modeling and extra TV work for some TV shows and movies, Die Hard 2, Ford Fairlane, Father Dowling Mysteries, old style beer commercials. So I got involved with a little bit of that. And, I actually, when I left Colorado, I was kind of glad to leave that behind because being on the set of a TV show or a movie, talk about consuming your time. And a lot of people are glad to be there. Oh, wow, I'm going to be on a TV show. I'm in a movie and stuff. But I was getting annoyed because, 16 hours a day on a TV set when I had a shop with some cars in there I need to work on. And these right here are my tools. And sitting there on that set, my hands are, like this. And I got to sit across from Tom Bosley and play poker with him while he smokes cigarettes through a big long filter and all kinds of stories I could come up with there. But I was happy to leave that and get out to Nebraska so I could concentrate on doing something with cars. That's really where I wanted to be. And, Ken helped me find a window of opportunity to go forward in that. And then right about the same time, of course, this is a sideline, is some other guys here in Lincoln were working on building a Shelby convertible for a movie called Indian Runner that Sean Penn was doing. So obviously they were having trouble. I was new and I got to meet them. And anyway, the car came over to my shop and all of a sudden I was building this fake Shelby for Sean Penn for the movie Indian Runner. And then right back again, I'm thrown into the movie industry because it was filmed up in Omaha and partly here in Lincoln. So I'm hanging out on the set while they're burning the car. I'm meeting Viggo Mortensen, Patricia Arquette, Charles Bronson. I'm eating donuts with him at the food cart and stuff. So I'm right back into the movie industry in Nebraska. And I thought I was done with this. It was a fun time. That's just a quick little sideline note. And we won't get into the other movie I was involved with, which was Tu Wong Fu with Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes. I auditioned for one of the parts there, but they ended up using me for the transportation of older cars to the movie set.
So you spent, I guess the first time that you ever went to the SEMA show, was that with Kenny?
Well, I didn't go there with them. They were already there, and I went in my number 6 Mustang, our Autocraft custom built number 6 Mustang. And I drove all the way from Lincoln, Nebraska to Las Vegas. I went through Wyoming. I stopped at a gas station in Wyoming. It was so damn cold. The car was freezing up. I put cardboard in front of the radiator, let it idle for a while to defrost. And that seemed to work. But when I left, I forgot to take the pump out of the tank. And this is something that Paul would never let me live this down. But I took off with part of the pump in the tank, and it broke the hose. And in Wyoming, they didn't have quick disconnects, so fuel gushed out of that pump, and I didn't even know it until I got a couple of days later, and I called the shop because we didn't have cell phones back then. You weren't instantly communicating with your people. I called back to my shop, and my secretary was just frantic and thought that I'd burnt down a gas station or something like that. So anyway, that was a very traumatic drive. But once I got out of the weather and the snow and finally got into Las Vegas, I found Ken and Paul at the motel, and they were. I just got done from a 12 to 16 hour road trip. I'm frazzled, and it was in the evening time, and they were cooped up in the motel, and they wanted to go out to a restaurant and see the sights and whatever. So we hopped in my number 6 Mustang, and Paul was in the back seat, Ken and I up front, and so I forget. I don't think the Hard Rock Cafe was there yet, but we went someplace and driving on the Vegas Strip and stuff. And it was just kind of a neat thing for me because here's all of a sudden thrown into the situation. Here's Kenny Brown and I driving around Las Vegas, and it was a fun deal.
I bet you stopped and had a few beers too, right?
We stopped someplace, and Las Vegas is party atmosphere, so we stopped someplace. I forget where it was, and the band playing and stuff, and we're out there dancing around and stuff, and it was a fun time. It was a bonding experience, you might say.
That's cool. For anybody that, I don't think we mentioned, Doug, you mentioned it once or twice, but if anybody needs some custom work done, Doug is in Lincoln, Nebraska, and his shop is called Autocraft.
And it's spelled with a K.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, yeah.
There's a decal behind me there. It's a windshield banner that we used to put on the Mustang windshields, and you know, it's kind of like what Ken did, and Celine and Dario Orlando, Steeda, and there's a few other smaller guys like myself, custom building Mustangs, and we did our own Mustangs. We did 34 custom built Mustangs and Fox body Mustangs back in the day, and you know, once in a while one of those cars surfaces and I get a phone call and somebody's got it. So you know, all that happened because of some connections with Ken, and of course my passion as well for wanting to do stuff. You know, it was just but yeah, we do custom work. We're still here. We've been here 31 years now. Handful of guys. I trained a lot of young guys to become skilled craftsmen. We do a lot of restorations on vintage cars, Ferraris, Alfa Romeos, a lot of Mustangs, and we're more into vintage restoration as we are collision repair anymore. But I also invented or developed a rotisserie called the roller hoop, which is for restoring cars, and that's going pretty well. We've got about 402 units across the world now, and it's just a helpful tool for aiding guys that are serious about doing restoration work. So yeah.
Well, that leads into one of our questions. And anybody that has questions for Doug, I want you to put them in the comments right now, or any questions for us. Anyway, one person said, for people that don't know, can we describe what a body in white is?
Yeah, a body in white is simply, it can be red, it can be blue, it can be white. Basically it's a pre-production car that the manufacturer builds and assembles before job one assembly line work is done to sell that car to the general public. It's maybe 30 or 40, sometimes 150 body in whites done. Not all of them get completely built into a driving car. Some of them are just a body shell that gets set aside for maybe somebody over at the X-Car garage or something wants to cut section out of it to, you know, see how the welds are looking and stuff. So that's
build race cars too. We used to get body in whites with just the body shell, and we'd build race cars out of that. And so a lot of racers start with a body in white. It's a long process, but it's lightweight. So let's go through some other questions here. We have our comments. First of all, it was Kyle Kent, whose name wasn't popping up, and who answered the question on the spanner wrench. If you weren't with us, I'll read this. The spanner wrench that Brad held up from Kenny's toolboxes, it's a ratchet head provision on the tab of the spanner wrench. Makes it easier to turn on the loaded coil over. I think that was Bob Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Fred asked him if he had the same.
Yeah, the whole is for the ratchet extension. Good morning from Louisville. Yeah, so anyway, that was good answers for us.
Doug, didn't you build some short wheelbase hot rod Lincolns at one time as well?
Well, one Lincoln Mark 8, yeah. The number 6 short wheelbase unit, the MN12 platform, is a Lincoln Mark 8 I built for my wife Stephanie, and that was a really neat car. And I don't have pictures of it with me here, but
doesn't Jeff Jacobucci own that car now?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he owns the first red one, and also the Mark 8. That's the red one. That was early days picture. But yeah, Jeff Jacobucci is he's I've kind of designated him as the short wheelbase T-Bird historian, if you will, because he has a lot of passion for them, and he has 2 of them. And, you know, I'm always busy in the shop, and sometimes I get people calling just to ask questions about them and stuff, or on the internet. And I simply say, check with Jeff Jacobucci. He has all that information. So he's the historian.
And I think his Lincoln is black. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's red.
Okay.
That was just early days picture of it and such. So, but I got a whole box full of pictures here for the short wheelbase T-Bird project and the Mustangs and such. So, but you know, it back in the day, it was just doing a job, doing a thing, and building a car and such. We built 6 of them, and but now it's kind of history. It's people enjoy seeing them out and about or hearing about them, because internet is such a good way to spread that kind of information around.
So this was very valuable information. Really fun to hear this from you, Doug. Right now, Doug will answer questions, and I want to put out there, what kind of guests would you like us to interview next? You just let us know who you'd like to hear from or what part of the industry you'd like to hear from, and we'll take that into consideration on adding some more guests.
Man, we have a comment from, maybe a question and a comment from John Winker. He says, I believe Doug worked on Paul's wife, Carol's hand control Mustang. Can Doug confirm this? And let's see.
Some information on the project.
And share some information about that project. So that was a really cool car that Carol drove. For those of you that don't know, Carol was paralyzed from the waist down. That was Paul's wife. Who's passed away as well now. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, okay, that was another fun project. Anything that you did with Paul and or Ken was intense and focused in on performance and stuff. So they had to have a body and paint guy, and that's kind of where I was available for them. That concept came up when she was racing her Ferrari 355, and it was okay on the track. She's racing World Challenge, a man's sport, and here's a paraplegic gal racing in a man's world. And the Ferrari was very expensive when things broke or got crashed or whatever. So Paul talked her into building this ultimate Mustang and the Cobra 03 Mustang. So it ran the Cobra supercharged motor, the Aston Martin sequential shifting, a Viper rear carrier with a Morgan rear end carrier. So this was a hodgepodge of all kinds of performance parts, but kind of like when we went to put it together or set it up, the rear end didn't quite fit the wheel arches right. So it was decided to redo the wheel arches. But in short, what I did is cut the car in half and lengthened it 1.5 inches, and then widened the quarter panels so we could fit the wheels and tires. And this was all done very quickly. A lot of people involved, a couple of volunteers and such. The crew at my shop worked day and night on it, prepped it, painted it. Then the design for the painting came in from a design person in California, blue and silver with angles and stripes. And so anyway, we did that, prepped and painted it, put orange stripes on it, and wow, it looked really nice. Ended up being at the SEMA show, getting a lot of attention. Ended up being on the cover of the 50 magazine, which gets a lot of attention. I was looking for a copy of that, but I don't see it here. So yeah, that was quite a project. Carol was very competitive in the car and racing with the hand controls. The steering wheel was the brakes as you push forward, and the throttle ring behind the steering wheel was the gas pedal or the throttle. Now I didn't do anything with that. That was all done by Steel Thurkelson, who was a master machinist, fabricator, an older gentleman, but that spent time with Shelby American Racing, and he did all the 427 engine work and the throttle linkages on the GT40s that beat Ferrari. And we're all familiar with the movie now. Well, behind the scenes was Steel Thurkelson, and quite obviously an extremely talented guy, and he did all the engineering for that, the hand controls for that car.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so I'm assuming you did all the body work on that too, because that car had some really cool body.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or like I say, I had stretched the quarter panels 1.5 inches and then widen and bow the quarters out so they'd fit the wheels and stuff. And the thing about it is, you're not supposed to alter the body on these cars, so nobody could tell it was 1.5 inches longer. And then the front fenders, I built pressure relief vents in the fenders where I cut it right on the wheel arch and smoothed the inner part of the fender in and made it a 3 or 4 inch vent there. And that became very popular, and Paul started fabricating those in carbon fiber and stuff as well. So just lots of body modifications on that one.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So we have a few more comments here. Brad, you want to read?
So Kyle Kent commented, Rory commented about the movie industry. It's a hurry up and wait, exclamation point.
Yeah.
And John Winker, who asked the question about you and your work with Carol's car. John, he has an organization called, I believe it's Resilience Racing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he works with disabled veterans, and they have a race car that has hand controls, and I'm sure that it was in part inspired by the work that you and Paul did with Carol's car. But his organization is a great organization. You have to look them up online because I don't have a link handy, but Resilience Racing is just a great organization. They do a lot of great work with vets. We've featured them on Cars and Coffee in the past, and hopefully maybe we can get John on as long at some point and have him talk a little bit about that, because that program is a great program. I think he might be working with, is it Skip Barber right now?
Kirk works for Skip Barber.
Okay, so Kirk works,
but Skip Barber is one of their sponsors. Anyway, John, why don't you get in touch with me and we'll see if we can get you and Kirk on. That would be really fun. If you'd like to get involved with Resilient Racing, you can visit their website. I think it's just resilienceracing, it might be .org. John, if you can put that up, that would be great. And I think there's if you want to donate to the cause, I think there's a link on there where you can donate. So it's a pretty cool what they're doing.
And then Kyle Kent, he commented, Body in White is a shell provided to racers and custom builders by the manufacturer to get their cars out there into the aftermarket and motorsports world, not a complete car. So in some cases, some of the Body in Whites, particularly years ago, were, in some cases, they were complete running, driving cars, but they didn't have VIN numbers. So the only thing you could do with them was either crush them or sell them for $1 to a racer or a car builder who wanted to do something cool with it. And a lot of the SEMA cars that were featured in the Ford booth were actually pre-production cars that started life as a Body in White, had no VIN numbers or anything like that. I think Old Blue was one of those cars. That car does not have a VIN number; it just has a certificate of origin. And he also says, thank you, Doug, for the great stories, Kyle. And then Rory commented, is the government not trying to stop this? And SEMA is fighting it for us. So that's another topic for another day.
RPM Act.
So the RPM Act is something that SEMA started, a couple of years ago. And it's basically a pact to help work against or with the EPA to try to bring some sense and reasoning to the aftermarket automotive world and to the racing industry, which the government's working diligently or has been working diligently for years to try to just outright kill. And sometimes the manufacturers are a help and sometimes they're a hindrance. Kyle also says that it would be cool to hear the story about the Windstar, the Ford Windstar minivan that Kenny built for SEMA. So that's another story for another day. But
I just have to comment on this though. Kenny was so excited we were getting a minivan, and you realize that at that time his son lived with his mother during the and my stepson, who I love, went to school, and he lived with us during the summer. So we really did not have any children at that time, but he was so excited to let me, after the project was finished, this was my car. Mm-hmm. Well, and anyway, I said, I'm not driving a minivan. So it ended up to be his car. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, but it was supercharged and had big wheels and tires and brakes and exhaust and Recaro seats. And so we're going to dig up some information on that, and we'll resurrect the story behind the Windstar minivan. I know if Calvin Goring is with us, he and I both have very fond memories of that minivan. That was a custom supercharger. It was like a less than an MN12 that we bolted on top of this V6, and that was a real work, a real piece of work there. to get that done. And I think we blew up 3 transmissions in the thing. Finally, they gave us one that actually worked well, but that car had that van had European brakes on it and a host of other stuff that just was not available or even seen in the United States. So that was one of those projects that was a lot like the A1 Lincoln Aviator that Ken Dill did. It was right up with that in terms of engineering and development work. And John, he posted up a link for everybody. You should be able to see that if you're on Facebook, ResilienceRacingFoundation.org. So please go and check them out. They're always accepting donations. It's a great cause to work with, and we look forward to having him on in a future episode.
So one thing I want to announce is next week is Memorial Day and race weekend here in Indianapolis. What we're going to do, Brad and I kind of talked about it. We are going to run the encore presentation of Kenny's first Cars and Coffee. We thought that would be really fun to see from where he started with Cars and Coffee and where he ended up. So we will be running episode 1 next Saturday morning. So enjoy that.
That'll be a blast from the past. It's the old set, and it was poor video resolution, and so it's a real cool piece of history. And Dylan, who I understand just got his complete IRS rear suspension from us this week. His dad brought it home from work, so I know that he's super excited, and he's going to be spending the weekend playing around with his car.
Come back.
But Dylan has a question for Doug. Doug has ran off momentarily. Maybe he had to go to the bathroom or something.
But yes, he does. Dylan, he does sell the rotisseries. Here he comes. We'll let him talk about it.
So Doug, we have a question for you from our friend Dylan, who's just a great guy. He's a member of the Speed Therapy Academy, and we absolutely love him. He's like family to us. But he says, "Hey Doug, I believe you said your company is Autocraft. I was going through your website and saw that you built a rotisserie. Do you sell them, and how much are they?"
Well, yeah, we build them right here in the shop. The roller hoop is what I came up with as far as the name. Pricing is right around $2,000. You just have to get on the website, rollerhoop.com, and see, the price kind of goes up with the steel prices and such too. So, but very useful piece of equipment for restoring cars.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that, I was just in awe that somebody had designed something that was that cool and that functional. And I said to myself, wow, this thing is a real game changer for people that are doing restoration work from the ground up. I just couldn't imagine who it was that thought of that. And I never realized that it was you until just recently. And I had met you several times over the years. You would have your Autocraft trailer and you would travel around to a lot of the Mustang shows. And we were both a lot younger back then, but those were some great times to hook up with you and hear you tell stories about the old days with Ken and Paul. So those are some cherished moments in my life with some of those brief moments that I spent with you.
Yeah, I used to get out and about here and there and such, but so much work in the shop now, I don't get out too much. But I was just I stumbled across a couple other pictures since we're talking about short T-birds. This was actually number 5 on the bench getting shortened. Actually, here's number 3 in white. Now, I also took that car up to Detroit and went to the X-Car Garage and SVO and the X-Car Garage. Lou Williams actually took the car. He and Ken were friends, so he treated me with open arms and took us all around the proving grounds and the inside the X-Car Garage and stuff, and they were fascinated to see the car. And here that car is in blue. And this was the first car in the Midwest to have 18-inch wheels and tires on it. I took that car to the SEMA show, and I think it was 03 or 93, and the Tire Rack came out and offered to put 18-inch wheels on it. But at that time, they were unheard of. there's that number 5 car. It's hard to
Oh,
get this.
wow.
That's just my crew at Autocraft back in 1999 when we did the 05 car. There's kind of a picture of it done up, just so your viewers can see. Just well, here's a picture of it in the shop in process. Now you can see in the background is a Porsche up on my old style of rotisserie, which is an end mount unit. And after using that for many years, I decided to come up with something different. But there's just the number 5 short T-Bird out front of the shop. So, and then here's just
yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, it's just incredible work that you do over there, Doug. I mean, you really are one of those few and far between true passionate craftsmen, a true innovator. And it's such a pleasure to have you on and hear some of the stories that you've told and really hear, some great history, because those were pinnacle times in the Ford world when you were doing things that were so far outside the box, and people really stood up and took notice of that.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. It's it opened up a lot of doors. It did make a lot of people stand back and wow, and this and that. And over the years, like I said, it's passion, it's inspiration that you get from other people and such. And like I say, I've been training a lot of young guys here at my shop over the past I think there's been 92 young guys through here in the past 30 some years. And one of the other young guys, and I realize I am part of history now with all this pictures and stuff. And, it used to be just old pictures in a box, but now it's starting to come to light. And the young people that I get now, they have to go through and hear all the stories and different stuff. Then they get interested. They start asking questions about that stuff. And so it's fun to kind of relive some of the work, because, it's easier to relive it than it is to create it and do it. But one of the other projects that we done was the reversion Mustang. And that was done back in 2011. And we had it at the SEMA show in 2011. And so that was just another spinoff of doing really wild modified custom car work. So it's just all relating back to those early days with doing the short wheelbase T-Birds with Ken, doing the outlaw cars with Ken, doing my chopped Mustang, which you see here. And here I am on track right here at Road America. And I would never had those experiences if it wasn't for happening to run into Project Industries at that time and working with Ken. I probably would have just ended up being an average body collision repair guy, fixing trucks.
I don't know about that, Doug. You're pretty
like
talented.
Yeah.
We have one last question for you, Doug. And this is from Dylan Calkins, and he lives in North Dakota, so he's kind of in the Midwest there, upper Midwest. I have one last question for you. In your opinion, about what you think it would cost to repaint a 2001 Mustang convertible from black to mineral gray? I'd like to be able to compare it to other shops. So he's wondering if you would quote him. Do you want him to call you, or do you want to give him an idea?
No, I'll just give him an idea. We're booked up for about 4 or 5 years. We're not accepting any more work. We've got so much big stuff going on. But a basic paint job anymore is $8,000 to $16,000. To do a fairly good quality paint job. It's just typically if you're looking for a certain car and you want to change color, sell the one that you have, find that other car that's that color that you like, and there's good deals out there to be had. But in today's body and paint shop, you got to pay for the modern day labor rates, the material cost, and unless you absolutely love that car, or it's a special vehicle for you, then it's very costly to do a color change on the car.
Good.
Okay, this is one last comment, and then we're going to probably close up for the day. Great stories. Thanks for sharing them, Doug, and thanks to Cari and Brad for arranging this. This is Brad and I enjoy this, and it's kind of we're honoring Kenny to keep his cars and coffee. with Kenny Brown program.
And it's good
ongoing.
therapy for us as well.
It's really
Yeah.
good therapy. So
I enjoyed it too. I'm very surprised my cats didn't jump up here on my lap and cause havoc. You see me glancing off in the distance. They're jumping around on things, but they're keeping away from me.
So again, if you're enjoying this, please comment. If you want us to continue on with interviewing people that knew Kenny or stories, or also comment if you'd like us to bring in any guest experts from the industry. We can do that. We're pretty well connected, or Kenny is. So just let us know that, and we appreciate you joining us today. And remember, next Saturday, Memorial Day weekend, we are going to be playing an encore presentation of Kenny's first Cars and Coffee. So that should be pretty interesting. I'm going to watch it myself because I think it was a little rough, but he did a really good job. It's hard getting in front of the camera and talking. You think it would be easy, but it's not. So anyway, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And we will see you the week after Memorial Day, but please watch next week's replay of encore presentation of Kenny's first Cars and Coffee.
And thank you again, Doug. It was always good to see you, and it was great to see you again. And we really appreciate the time and effort that you put into this, and the pictures and everything else. You just make a great guest and co-host for the show. So thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. It's fun to kind of, like say, relive some of this stuff, because back in the day, you put a lot of time and effort and passion into it, hoping that, hey, is there a payoff somewhere down the road? And simple things like this are good payoffs.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you live again in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, in June.
And you folks have a good weekend
And a great Memorial Day weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.